mind blindness, emotions blindness, and executive function deficits all create the biggest problem, which is anxiety. If I'm not sure what other people might be thinking and why they behave certain ways, and if I don't understand what other people might be feeling and why, and I have a lot of these executive function deficits, emotional dysregulation and memory problems and attention problems and so on, creates a lot of anxiety and unpredictability. He has a ton of unpredictability in his life. He's probably never even used that term for you. His life is full of unpredictability. What does somebody do when they're dodging paintballs all day? They try to come up with as much predictability as they can. What does that look like? They have to have routine, structure, rules. They don't like change. They especially don't like surprise change. And how does that download to the NT? That he's very rigid, self-absorbed, one-track mind, opinionated, stubborn. So our big goal in this group, the overarching issue that we're going to directly and indirectly try to address, is how to reduce his anxiety, which will in turn reduce some of your anxiety. Because as long as your message raises his anxiety, you're screwed. Whenever you try to problem solve with him when his anxiety comes up, be a lot less painful and time consuming to just go beat your head against a brick wall. This isn't micromanaging. This isn't turning you into a mom. This doesn't mean that you have to do a bunch of that. All the relationship work is on your shoulders. It's really a simple formula. Your mantra has to become effective immediately. How can I, and we'll discuss in depth exactly how to do this. What can I say or do or avoid saying or doing such that A, we can actually start working on problems, and B, I don't raise his anxiety, because as soon as his anxiety comes up, all bets are off, and you're wasting your time again. A lot of the NTs, especially the older ones that I run into, they go, we don't even talk about problems anymore. They just pile up in the closet there. I just don't even bring anything up anymore because it just ends in a shit show and don't get anywhere. And then now the only thing I get accomplished is our resentment gets more entrenched. And he just wants to isolate more because now I'm his number one source of anxiety. So his big goal of the day is try to avoid me. The biggest problem by far is the anxiety issue. And there's multiple ways to attack that, but it's going to be very individualized. What's going to work for Donnie may backfire for Megan, so we will need to kind of tailor it to the specific situation, because if you've met one guy with ASD level 1, you've only met one guy with ASD level 1. Because there's so much variability amongst individuals on the spectrum that there's never going to be a one-size-fits-all. Sometimes and it's justifiable, sometimes she feels like she's doing all the relationship work, which I'm sure you're doing most of it, and then I come along and add to it. But I don't want you to feel like you got to do these things and to continue to do what you were doing. So actually, if you will be open-minded here for a few minutes, I'll actually save you work rather than make more work for you. But I have to say, this is not a commentary on any of the ladies in here, but I have to say that the vast majority of the time, she will not follow through with this for numerous reasons that I could list, but I don't see that would be useful. I've done this for a long time now, and I have discovered what will trigger his anxiety for the most part. And I have also discovered that anxiety is the big deal. All this behavior that you see that's causing problems, all of it can be traced back to anxiety. And if you wanted to drill deeper than that, we could even go so far as to say anxiety that started in childhood. But we don't necessarily need to analyze the hell out of it to understand this. So you will do this. It is likely that you will reduce conflict by a good 50%. So if you've ever paid attention to me, now it's time to do it. One thing I'm asking you to do, unless it's an emergency, and I know sometimes things are emergent and have to be dealt with right now, I understand that. But the other 95% of the time, I would make an appointment because he doesn't like to be interrupted. He doesn't like his structure jacked with. He doesn't like his routine upset. He's always hyper-focused, and he's off in his little inner world, doing his little things. And you come along wanting him to shift focus. And by the way, that's one of the executive function deficits, shifting focus. It upsets his apple cart. So when you need to talk to him about, I'm not talking about every time you want to talk to him. I'm just saying when you have something that's important to you that you really need him to be all ears and you need his cooperation, do yourself a favor, just make an appointment. You can say, there's something I need your help with. When you're free, let me know, because I got something to run past you. I hope you paid attention to what I just said over the last 5 seconds. That's your word each. There's something I need your help with. You're not busy. Let me know. I got something I need to run past you. So what I run into a lot in working with couples online is they have gotten into the business of keeping score. And it's like the scorecard is about who is hurt the most. For example, she'll say, you never do this. And he goes, oh, well, that's because you never do that. And she goes, well, remember when you said blah, blah, blah? And he goes, yeah, but then you said such and such. And so it's like this competition, almost like sibling rivalry, where you have this brother and sister that are so competitive. And each party is trying to make the other party feel that they're wrong. So the scorecard is the victim scorecard. And I'm keeping score of how much you have victimized me. And I'm going to be sure and bring it up each time we fight. I'm going to bring up the problem that I'm having with the current fight. And I'm going to throw in all the other stuff that we fought about previously. So when you get to this point, what's going on is back in the day, and I'm talking to the ASD husbands now, you drifted away for whatever reason and she stopped getting some of her intimacy needs met. And so then she began to have some anxiety and even fear about, spending the rest of her life going solo rather than as a team player. And so she is now at a point where she's kind of fearing abandonment. And now I'm going to talk to the NT wives. Back in the day when he was meeting some of your intimacy needs, you probably also showed appreciation for that and provided him with a little bit of acknowledgement and praise. But now we fast forward to today, and you haven't verbalized any appreciation for a long time. And now he fears being controlled, being criticized, and the end result is he pulls away even more. Now we're into this cycle where the NT wife is the pursuer and the ASD man is the distancer. She's not getting her intimacy needs met. She fears abandonment and lack of cooperation. He's not getting his appreciation needs met. He fears being controlled and criticized. And so now we're back to the scorecard again, where he's going, well, you're always trying to control me. You're always being critical. Oh, yeah. Well, you never provide me with emotional reciprocity. I'm emotionally deprived. I have Cassandra syndrome. See, my scorecard is way more accurate than yours. And back and forth like this. And it's a competition. And the competition is slowly destroying the relationship. So back to the guys now, you need to be thinking in terms, how can I make her feel like she's not going solo, that I am part of the team, and that she is getting some of her intimacy needs met. And ladies, you need to be thinking in terms of, okay, instead of me focusing on keeping score of my hurts, maybe I need to come up with a well-placed compliment or show of appreciation sometimes. I don't care how much he has dropped the ball, and I'm sure he has dropped it many times. He's doing something right. So do yourselves a favor, the both of you. Put the damn scorecards away. This isn't a freaking competition, okay? Hey guys, this is Mark, and a quick message to men on the autism spectrum. If you have ASD level 1, you're going to have some degree of mind blindness. And sometimes what ends up happening with that is you think you're smarter than everybody else. But other people see that and they go, he thinks he's smarter than everybody else. And that makes you look dumb. Okay? But other people can see that and you don't see that you're not the smartest person. It's like having spaghetti sauce all over your lip here. And you're talking to people, acting like everything's normal. Don't even know what's going on. And other people are looking at you like, this guy doesn't even realize he has spaghetti sauce all over dripping down his chin. And so if you have ASD level 1, you're going to have some mind blindness. And you may be thinking And you may have thought for a long time, I'm smarter than anybody else. Other people can see that you think you're smarter than everybody else, and they don't agree.
Hey, quick message to ASD husbands. If you're married to a neurotypical wife who is super intuitive and an empath, I'm going to be praying for you hard and long, because she's playing major league and you're like playing t-ball. She's also super smart socially, super smart emotionally, and intuitive. She's going to expect you to match her. Yikes. I'll be praying for you.
We have to make a huge paradigm shift. This is going to be hard to do for you and others. I mean, I'm really going out on a limb here and asking a lot of you. But in the spirit of happy wife, happy life. Some of you are probably sick of that cliche, but it is so true. Because when she's all pissed off, unless you're just gone at work or you've taken off and shut down somewhere, it's like a dark cloud hanging over. It's worse than a dark cloud hanging over your head. It's a dark cloud that's raining on you and striking you in the ass with lightning. So in the spirit of keeping the peace, we have to make this shift from I'm going to listen to mount a defense because I know I'm right and she's wrong, over to I'm going to listen to understand her perspective. And this is going to take practice, and you're going to flub it up, and you don't beat up on yourself when you flub it up. You just go, okay, well, I got all passionate again, and I know I'm right, and her opinion is just basically dumb. I can't even believe she believes that. But now I got to go back to the blackboard and try again. And that's fine. There's going to be a lot of trying again, a lot of fail, try, fail, try, fail. That's the way it's supposed to go. That's the way it will go. You practice. Here it is again. Now, I'm not talking about every conversation, the weather, sports, the stuff that you're really adamant about. There needs to be a little trigger goes off in your head. Okay, this is a hot topic for me, and this is where I usually go nuclear and insist that my way is the only way. So what I'm going to do instead, to reduce my relationship stress, I'm not even doing this for her, is I'm going to listen instead of thinking about what I'm getting ready to say so I can mount a very factual, smart defense. I'm going to now listen to understand. I'm going to stop what I'm doing. I'm going to look in her direction. I'm going to nod while she's talking. I'm going to tactfully stop her periodically before she goes on too long, because I want to paraphrase back what she said. And if she gets on to point 2 and 3 in her message delivery, I may forget what point 1 was. So when she gets on to point number 2 or 3, I'm going to say, would you mind if I check and make sure I got it so far? So what I understand you're saying is blah, 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 blah. And you're going to paraphrase, not parrot back. You're going to paraphrase back. She might say, no, that's not what I mean. You can say, well, would you mind trying again with slightly different wordage? She'll try it again. You'll get it the first or second time out. You'll say, so what you're saying is blah, blah, blah. She's going to say, yes, that's what I mean. That proves understanding. If you can paraphrase back what she said and she goes, yes, that's what I mean, that by default proves understanding. If you're more interested in keeping the peace than making a point, then while she's talking, have the thought, I'm listening to understand, and I'm going to paraphrase this back here in a minute. Versus, I'm listening, but not really. I'm thinking about how I'm going to come back and mount a defense. You have to make that shift.
What kind of humor can you find in your neurodiverse marriage? Yeah, I said, what kind of humor can you find in your neurodiverse marriage? I'm sure it's replete with very funny, curious, paradoxical irony. And so one of the things that you can do, instead of going, oh, that shouldn't have happened, and that hurt, and why do I have to keep going through this? No, wait. What's the funny part about it? You can get creative. Come on. I've lost track of the funny shit that has been reported to me. in these neurodiverse marriage. So, and I know that there's plenty of opportunities to go, well, that's odd, and that shouldn't have happened, versus that's interesting, and it's the irony in it is such and such. So be thinking in terms of how can I reframe some of these previously defined as undesirable episodes? How can I redefine those as, okay, that was at the very least interesting, but sometimes I'm going to go one step further and try to find the humor in it. So get creative and start thinking more positively with respect to how this is not just some destructive thing. It's actually interesting and funny at some level. Hey guys, this is Mark, and I got a tip for neurodiverse couples, and that is schedule an appointment to argue. Yeah, I said schedule an appointment to argue if there's going to be an argument, and walk while you're arguing. Okay? Why? Why do I want to schedule an appointment? So that it's kind of formalized. If you're married to someone with autism, he's going to want some structure and some rules, and he's not going to want you to just charge in and interrupt him. Hey, I got something I want to talk to you about now, especially when you're animated and angry as the NT wife. No, schedule an appointment, and when possible, walk while you are arguing. Why? Because eye contact sometimes can be very disturbing to your autistic husband. You won't be looking at one another if you're both walking in the same direction. Secondarily, you're going to be burning off adrenaline and cortisol and other fight or flight chemicals, because when you're arguing, the stress chemicals rear their ugly heads and makes it more likely that you're going to slip into some yelling, screaming, name-calling, blaming, and so on. So you're going to be burning off that negative pent-up anxiety energy, at least to a degree, while you're walking. Also, you're going to be oxygenating your brain because you're going to be breathing, which means you're going to think more clearly and be more creative in problem solving. Also, you're not going to be as likely to yell or scream or use profanity, etc. if you're out in public, whether you're walking at the park or around the block. So, in summary, if you're going to argue, that's fine. Fair fighting is acceptable. But schedule an appointment, unless it's emergent, which few things are, and make this appointment a walk. The two of you are going to walk around the block or at the park. Okay? Do it. Message to the neurodiverse couples out there. You know when your spouse says something and you stand there and look at them and you go, they just say that? And you're kind of doing a little quick analysis in your head, trying to decide if you want to be offended or not. Before you say anything, what I would do is have the thought, and just move on. Hey guys, this is Mark. I got a message to the neurotypical spouses out there, specifically neurotypical wives dealing with an autistic husband. I know you're discouraged, and you might be thinking, you know, this guy, he's so insensitive, uncaring, selfish, and narcissistic. And I understand, it looks like that. But what's really going on is he doesn't understand your emotions because he has this thing called ASD level 1, or Asperger's syndrome, such that his social and emotional brain is underdeveloped. It's not like he sees your emotions and chooses not to give a shit. He doesn't see them. So it's not that he's being insensitive and uncaring and selfish and narcissistic. He doesn't know what's going on in your head or in your heart. And the more you try to explain what's going on in your head and in your heart, the more you confuse the shit out of him. And the more he wants to leave you. Not necessarily in the form of divorce, but in the form of shutdown. So I have to tell you, you need to make a paradigm shift. The paradigm shift being, okay, good, bad, right or wrong, I'm married to someone who's autistic. He has a disorder. It's not a condition or a different way of thinking or a different ability. Now, he does have high IQ, and he has very much a high logical intelligence. But as far as social and emotional intelligence, no, he's low. And so the paradigm shift is I'm going to have to make some accommodations I guess I could just divorce him and leave him and say, screw this. That's fine too if you have to go there. But if you want to live with him, you have to realize that some of these things simply are not going to change. You're way up here with social and emotional intelligence, way up here with social and emotional needs, way up here with social and emotional skills. He's way down here. ASD level 1 is a disorder such that the social and emotional brain is underdeveloped. He couldn't will himself or stand on his head in enough different ways to meet your emotional needs to the level that you want. And he has tried, and he's given up. He has said so many times, it doesn't matter what I say or do, it's never good enough. I can never make her happy. He's given up. He has given up. And he's frustrated. And whenever you try to push him into being a neurotypical, his anxiety comes up and he shuts down or melts down. So again, you really have two choices. I can just leave the guy and move on and find a neurotypical husband. Or I can accept the fact that these things that he says or does that are hurtful, and they are hurtful, or these things that he avoids saying or doing that I really wish he would say or do, he's simply not capable of doing it. I'm not trying to get him off the hook. He's very much on the hook. He's paid the price for these traits of ASD level 1 from childhood. He's been on the receiving end of disapproval from childhood, and now yet again with you. So he's very much on the hook. You're not getting him off the hook or exonerating him by making some accommodations or showing some grace and mercy. You're just simply realizing, okay, I don't need to take it so personally. Yeah, the stuff he says or does, it hurts. The stuff I need him to do, he doesn't follow through with, that hurts. But it's not his fault. And it's not your fault. You didn't sign up for this marriage. He didn't sign up for autism. So, quick message to neurotypical spouses. Some of you, if not most of you, think that you know what's going on with autism. Yeah, this autism spectrum disorder, I know what's going on behind the curtain there. Selfishness, insensitivity, narcissism, sociopathy. Yeah. So those of you who think you know what's going on are going to suffer severely for a long time. I've been working in this field of autism for a long time. I'm not even sure the number of years at this point. And I've only scratched the surface of uncovering the mystery. I don't know much. Yeah, I'm admitting it. I don't know much. But at least I know that I don't know much. So some of you NT spouses that are so quick to pull the trigger on your knowledge about autism, it might be better to go, okay, I'm not really sure about this autistic mystery. I'm not sure what's really going on, but at least I know that I don't know what's going on. So, quick message to the neurotypical wives out there. If you're like most of the neurotypical wives I run into, she will say, well, I have to do all the relationship work. I do all the work, and I'm exhausted. Well, your work isn't working. So for you, I'm talking about the ladies that may be thinking, I have to do all the relationship work, but yet you're really struggling in this neurodiverse marriage. Less work is better in this case. Less work. You might be thinking, well, if I do less work, then I won't be able to resolve these issues. You won't be able to resolve them anyway. Your work is not working, not resolving much. In fact, you're probably making a bad problem worse too often. I'm not faulting you. Your heart's in the right place. You're doing the best you know how to do given the circumstances. Your intentions were good. It ain't working. Less is better right now. My top 10 conflict resolution methods. Number 1, accept conflict. Yeah, accept it. Conflict is natural and happens in every relationship, whether it's neurotypical or neurodiverse. So, since conflict is unavoidable, you may as well learn to manage it, not avoid it. For example, shutting down, melting down. True, there may be more conflict in a neurodiverse marriage than a neurotypical one, but that doesn't mean that something's going wrong. It's simply a sign that something needs to change. and it's an opportunity for growth, new understanding, and improved communication. So that's number one, accept conflict. Number two, analyze the problem. You want to clarify the specifics of the issue in question. Some questions that you can ask yourself are, what triggered the conflict? What happened during the conflict? What happened after the conflict? What was the level of intensity of the conflict? What am I afraid of losing? What am I afraid might happen? So number two, analyze the problem, and most specifically, look at the fears that are involved. Number three, avoid defending yourself. Don't try to convince the other person that your point of view is more satisfactory than theirs. Number four, be a calming agent. Your response to an argument can escalate or de-escalate the intensity of the problem. You get to choose. Keep your voice at a normal volume. Keep your voice at a normal pitch. Relax your facial muscles. Take long, deep breaths between sentences. Slow down your speech. Number five, employ active listening. You're going to look interested. Provide some eye contact. No distractions. And paraphrase back what was heard to check for accuracy of your download. Number six, focus on the future. In conflict, you may tend to remember every single thing that ever bothered you about your spouse. Couples in conflict need to talk about the past. Sometimes that's true, but they often dwell and ruminate on the past. You're ruminating about the past is you also re-injuring yourself, because the incident happened once or twice, but if you think about it 100 times, it feels like it's happened 100 times. So often the best way to take ownership of the problem is to recognize that regardless of the past, the two of you need to create a plan to address the present conflict. Number seven, separate your spouse from the problem. In other words, view the problem as a specific behavior or a set of circumstances rather than attributing negative feelings to your spouse. Number eight, stay on topic. Work on problem A only, not A, B, and C. When discussing things, don't wander off into other unaddressed issues before the current one is resolved. If a new issue comes up, in other words, you're talking about problem A and then problem B comes up, that's fine. But just simply recognize that as a second problem, and the two of you agree that we will address this second problem in the next conversation. Number nine, use neutral language. When couples are in conflict, they want to use inflammatory language, profanity, name-calling, exaggerations. All of that escalates the argument. Restate inflammatory language in a more objective way to help make the information less emotionally loaded. And lastly, number 10, end on a positive note. End the conversation with a touch on the shoulder, a hug, a kiss on the cheek, I love you even when we argue statement, and anything else that can kind of put out the flame. So those are my top 10 conflict resolution methods. Good luck.
If we want to define a meltdown, a true meltdown is not an adult temper tantrum, but they look similar, and she's probably accused you of just having a temper tantrum when it really wasn't. I'm not saying you never have temper tantrums, you do. But a meltdown is, as I mentioned, you have this amygdala, which is the fight or flight response. And when you feel threatened, and the amygdala, by the way, doesn't know the difference between a burning house and a mad wife. So when she's upset with you and she's coming at you, especially when she's already animated and wants to solve the problem now, your amygdala thinks that there's danger at hand. I know that sounds like an exaggeration. It's not. Your amygdala is thinking, we're not safe right now. And it floods your body with adrenaline and cortisol because it doesn't know that this is, I don't really need to worry about my wife pulling a gun and shooting me. So I'm actually, even though she's mad at me, I'm still pretty safe. The amygdala doesn't know that. And so when you're in the throes of this adrenaline and cortisol, the prefrontal cortex shuts down because it doesn't want to get in the way, because that amygdala is there for a reason. If you're at the mall and you see people running towards you and you hear gunshots off in the distance and there's some fucking maniac in there shooting the place up, you want adrenaline and cortisol to hit you hard so you get the hell out of there. But you're only in danger, even with the craziness that's going on today, you're truly only in real danger about 0.00001% of the time. But you're stuck with this old brain that doesn't know the difference between a mad wife and being chased by a bear. So one of the things you can do when you find yourself starting to melt down is go, wait a minute. That's the old brain, the amygdala, thinking that this is a danger level of 10 when it's only a danger level of 0.5. I need to stop, slow down, take a deep breath, and remind my amygdala, hey, we're okay. This isn't a bear. She's not coming at me with a steak knife. We're okay. When you have that little piece of self-talk right there, That's the prefrontal cortex came back online. When you say to yourself, we're okay, we don't need to be this hypervigilant and paranoid right now, that thought came from the prefrontal cortex. Now the amygdala is going to take a back seat. The new brain's online is saying, we're okay, settle down there, buddy. Mr. Amygdala, we're fine. It's just her being mad again. I don't need to mount a defense or getting all worried, get my blood pressure up. And that whole business I just described, it was prevention because we're preventing from escalating above 5, 6, 7, and so on. So it's intervening early to prevent the larger damage that's going to be done if that thing writes itself out. Both of you may be thinking of the other person, well, that's illogical as hell. I don't know where he comes up with that. He's probably thinking the same thing of you. She's probably thinking the same thing of him. I hear this all the time. You say these guys are so logical. His logic didn't make any sense to me. Of course it wouldn't make any sense to you. So you're either going to agree to disagree. You might be able to strike some kind of a compromise. And you may also want to do a cost-benefit analysis. And I'm specifically referring to the guys here, although the ladies can do a cost-benefit analysis too. But it's especially important for the guys to hear this piece. And what that business is, the cost-benefit analysis is, okay, she wants me to do A, and I really prefer to do B. So I'm going to do a cost-benefits analysis. If I do it my way, if I do B, what's likely to be the outcome? If I do A, go along with her program, what's likely to be the outcome? And you're going to weigh. My suggestion would be to take the path of least resistance. It's not a lose-win. It's a how bad do I want to lose? Do I want to lose big or lose small? If I do it my way and piss her off, it might have been just a whole lot easier just to do it her way. So if you're going to let your pride and ego get in the way and just basically say, screw you, I don't care how mad you get, I'm just going to do it my way. Well, now you're right back to square one again. And you're back in the doghouse as far as she's concerned. So I'm not saying just go along with whatever she wants. But I am saying sometimes it might be in your best interest to do that. And vice versa. Same thing applies to the ladies. If it's going to cause you more pain to stick to your guns than it is to bend a little bit, you may want to bend a little bit. So it's not a win-win. It's kind of a semi-win, semi-win. It's really just an in-depth version of just a compromise, where you're saying, okay, what is going to cause me the least pain? If both options seem painful.
Hey guys, this is Mark. Quick message to neurodiverse couples. The first step in solving your relationship problems is to agree on what the problem is. A lot of times the NT wife goes, oh, the problem is this. The ASD husband goes, no, that's the problem over here. So we must first agree on what the problem is before we can attempt to solve it. But having said that, if the two of you disagree on what the problem is, then simply make it a two-pronged problem. A two-pronged problem. In other words, I'll help you resolve your version of the problem if you'll help me resolve my version of the problem. Today we're going to answer the question, what are the advantages or the benefits of avoiding conflict resolution? And the answer to that is the benefits are zero. Zero. If the two of you, talking to the neurodiverse couples now, are not willing to or able to work on conflict resolution, problem solving in the marriage is what we're talking about here, then the team spirit is lost. I'm guessing that in the early going of the relationship, the two of you were somewhat bonding. There was some empathy, social, emotional reciprocity, and so on. The two of you probably had trust. The two of you bonded. The two of you viewed yourself as a team. Without conflict resolution over the years, which is going to happen, there's going to be conflict. You have to resolve it. Without conflict resolution, that team playing spirit is gone. Without conflict resolution, usually the NT wife is going to suffer mentally, sometimes physically, depending on how many years it goes by, because she has been trying to work on the problems and she's probably getting nowhere. The problems are piling up in the closet. And the more they pile up, the more each new problem feels very heavy. So in the early going, if there was only 50 problems and now there's 500 problems, we're getting a cumulative effect. And that straw has broke the camel's back a long time ago. Without conflict resolution, resentment builds. Resentment is like quicksand. The further you move forward, the deeper you go. And when the quicksand is up to here, and the resentment is up to here, that's usually when the couple gets divorced. Without conflict resolution, there is increased bitterness, arguments, control freak type behavior, more shutdowns and meltdowns from your ASD spouse, and eventually the NT spouse becomes the ASD spouse's number one source of anxiety. And now problem solving is virtually impossible. And so as the problems pile up in the closet there, pretty much both parties feel like the relationship is no longer safe. Trust is shattered. That original bond when you first were together is broken. Hope is non-existent. So, the answer to the question, what are the benefits of avoiding conflict resolution? 0. And it's not even a neutral thing. Avoiding conflict resolution makes a bad problem worse. So the question becomes, what can we do? Well, it's not so important the frequency of arguments. It's not so important the intensity of each argument. What is important, though, is when they come up, view it as part of the program, especially if you have the NT wife and the ASD husband. They're wired almost 180 degrees opposite. There's going to be a lot of conflict there. So you have to become an expert at understanding one another's triggers, understanding one another's belief systems, understanding one another's thinking, feeling, motives, and so on. So what we have to do with conflict resolution in this most complicated relationship, the neurodiverse relationship, a ton of grace and mercy and compassion. He's not doing anything wrong. I'm not saying he can't be an asshole. He can. But the other 80% of the time, these traits are not narcissism or selfishness. She's not doing anything wrong. She's wired to have a lot of social and emotional attention, and she's not getting it. So you can see why we have this dilemma. Grace and mercy and compassion. What is grace? I'm going to do something for my spouse that they probably don't deserve, but I'm going to take the high road and do it anyway. What is mercy? I'm going to avoid trying to punish my spouse, even though they probably do deserve it. What's compassion? I'm going to realize that we are wired completely opposite. And we are in a position with this relationship where conflict is not only likely, it's inevitable. And we should not be ashamed of the fact that we disagree a lot. So, the benefits to conflict resolution, avoidance, big fat 0. So this video will be short and it's going to be kind of distracting because you can probably hear my footsteps and I'm bobbing back and forth. But I'm actually on my treadmill that's here by my computer desk. So what does that have to do with anything? The message here is for the neurodiverse couples that have a problem even talking about relationship difficulties. So what I'm proposing here is, when possible, and if it's not possible 100% of the time, yeah, that's okay. At least shoot for 40% of the time. When you're going to try to talk about problems, it would be best to do it outside walking, okay? Call it talk and walk, instead of fight back at the house in the same room you always argue in. So this serves several purposes. One, it gets you away
from the area in the house or the areas in the house where you always have conflict and they end badly. So you're getting away from that environment. That's number one. Number two is you're walking. So now you're burning off some of the anxiety that rears its ugly head when conflict resolution is attempted. So you're not sitting there stewing in your adrenaline and cortisol, which just makes your anxiety even worse. You're burning some of that negative anxiety off as you're walking. 3, it gets you out unless you're walking at midnight, which I don't recommend. If you're walking, you're getting at least some sunlight. Even if there's some clouds, you're getting a little bit of sunlight. And so that's going to improve your mood. Your breathing is going to involuntarily increase, because a lot of times when couples are arguing, especially when it's the ASD man, his breathing will get real shallow, and sometimes he'll stop breathing altogether due to the anxiety. So now, at an unconscious level, you will be breathing more. You'll be oxygenating your brain, which is going to help problem solving, because now your brain's functioning a little better. You're going to increase endorphins a little bit, and you won't be facing one another, right? Eye contact is very intimidating to people on the autism spectrum. You'll be walking side by side, both of you moving in that direction. And I could go on for another 20 minutes with the benefits of walking just by itself, whether you're trying to engage in conflict resolution or not. So, it's really simple, guys. Pay attention. The next time both of you are in agreement that you're going to try to broach a difficult topic, go for a walk and discuss things while you're walking. And I would not recommend this going more than 20 minutes. I'm talking to the NTs now. The longer you talk, the thinner your ice gets that you're walking on. 20 minutes is max. So you're going to launch for 10 minutes, and you're going to come back for 10 minutes. Try it. Let's call this the Walk and Talk Challenge. Comment below. I want to hear from those of you who are actually going to try it, which I'm guessing most of you won't. You'll continue to want to do it the old way. What did Einstein say? Doing the same thing over and over again, expecting different results is insanity? Yeah. So the 2 or 3 people watching this video that will actually do it, comment below. Let me know how it worked. Okay, it's got to be better than what you were doing. So, walk and talk. This is a challenge. Neurodiverse couples, go.
10 negative consequences associated with avoiding conflict. Number 1, resentment buildup. Avoiding conflict can lead to pent-up frustrations, resulting in resentment towards your spouse, which will ultimately damage the relationship. Number 2, ineffective communication. When conflicts are avoided, important discussions are sidelined, leading to misunderstandings and lack of clarity in the relationship. Number 3, stagnation of issues. Problems that are not addressed will continue to grow, leading to more significant issues down the line that could have been resolved earlier on. Number 4, loss of trust. Avoiding direct conversations can make your spouse feel unvalued and disrespected, eroding trust in the relationship over time. Number 5, increased anxiety. Yes, avoiding conflict increases anxiety. The stress of unresolved conflicts often leads to heightened anxiety as both spouses worry about potential confrontations or consequences. Number 6, missed opportunities for growth. Facing conflict can lead to personal and professional growth. Avoiding it will result in missed opportunities for self-improvement and learning. Number 7, ineffective team dynamics. In a work environment, conflict avoidance can hinder collaboration, leading to poor team cohesion and decreased overall productivity. Number 8, emotional exhaustion. Constantly avoiding conflicts can be mentally and emotionally draining, leading to burnout or a sense of helplessness. Number 9, disempowerment. Spouses may feel powerless if they consistently avoid conflict, leading to a diminished sense of agency and decision-making ability. And number 10, compromised integrity. Avoiding conflict will lead to compromised values or beliefs, and spouses may feel pressured to conform rather than stand up for what they believe in.
He feels unsafe and insecure in the relationship. This causes anxiety. He tries to reduce his anxiety. His anxiety reduction techniques cause relationship problems. and the relationship problems raise his anxiety, and then he feels even more unsafe. So the whole point of this little conversation here is, at any point along the trajectory there could be some type of intervention. Anxiety is the first thing that happens. So he can find anxiety reduction methods, some of which will not work for everybody. Something that may work for this guy won't work for this guy, but there are a ton of anxiety reduction strategies. So if you tackle that first thing, the anxiety, and he finds some anxiety reduction strategies, now he's not engaged in some of the more dysfunctional anxiety reduction attempts that cause relationship problems. So now you've intervened at the very front and tackled the second and third step in the sequence. So if the relationship problems are greatly reduced, then she doesn't have to have the talk as much. So now his anxiety is not increased as much. And so the cycle doesn't start over as frequently. And then when it does, it's not as severe. That's the big goal. That's usually what happens when everybody's working the program, is this cycle occurs less frequently, and then even when it does, it's less intense and problematic and lingers not quite as long as it did back in the day.
Okay, so I felt like I needed to draw up a little graphic for you so you can see exactly what I'm referring to. This is mostly for the ASD spouses, although it doesn't hurt the NT spouses to hear this as well. But speaking of the NT spouse, we'll use the case where it's the autistic husband and the neurotypical wife. She understands that conflict is necessary and that disagreement is part of the program. And so this is not going to be a surprise to the NT wives. It might be a little bit of a new thing for the autistic husband, and that is this. Conflict is normal to a degree. Conflict is to be expected, and actually you want some conflict. Conflict is not altogether bad. You can't resolve a problem unless you identify the problem and discuss the problem. So a lot of guys on the autism spectrum view conflict as a disaster. They view talking about the problem as a personal insult and like they're being attacked and criticized and being parented. No. If you're in a relationship with your significant other, conflict is going to be part of the program. It's okay. There's nothing going wrong. Now, there is such a thing as having no conflict, and the guys might be going, oh, great. That's what I'm shooting for, no conflict. No, you don't want to shoot for no conflict, because if you do, and you find that you're in a relationship where there's no conflict and you never talk about problems, that means you've given up. Both parties have given up. And at some level, they don't even care about the relationship anymore. It's no longer important to them because they know they're not getting anywhere in this relationship. So no conflict is a bad sign. On the other end of the spectrum, we have too much conflict, which is probably where the neurodiverse couple finds themselves today. Chronic conflict. We're always fighting. We're always finding numerous problems. We're always focusing on the problems, never solving anything. That's just as bad, but it's on the other end of the spectrum. Now, in the middle, somewhere, we have moderate conflict. There is such a thing as fair fighting. I know that seems like an oxymoron, but you can fight, you can argue, you can have conflict, you can discuss things in a very passionate, heated way because, both parties, or certainly one party, is discussing something that's very important to him or her, and that's fine. Moderate amounts of conflict yield results. Moderate amounts of conflict yield results because A, you're having some discussion, but B, you're not so wrapped up in being in the rabbit hole of chronic, constant conflict that yields no positive results that you're okay with having a fight every now and then because well, yeah, we argue. It was a tough moment. Neither one of us really enjoyed the discussion per se, but we arrived at some kind of a resolution. So if the end result is almost always resolution, I can handle the conflict. Moderate amounts, that is. So conflict is okay. Conflict resolution will happen when you're in the middle of the spectrum here. So especially to the guys on the autism spectrum out there, don't view her talking about the problem as a personal attack, or that now she's out to get you, or that you've done something wrong, or that you are to be chastised. It's not a personal attack. She's not talking down to you. She's not criticizing you. She's wanting to fight fair, to resolve the issues. So one thing that often comes up when I'm working with neurotypical women in a relationship with a man on the autism spectrum, or vice versa, is she will say, I try to talk to him and he doesn't get it. I keep going over the same thing again and again and again. He doesn't get it. I keep trying to tell him what the problem is and what he can do to help alleviate the problem. He still doesn't get it. And so with this business of problem solving, what you're running into, if you're not getting the problem resolved, is you guys aren't agreeing on what the problem is. I run into this every time, as in 100%. She will go, when she's talking to him, well, the problem is this. And he'll go, no, that's not the problem. The real problem is that. And she will go, what? Are we on the same planet? No. This is the problem. I'm telling you, that's the problem. And he goes, no, that is not the problem. You're wrong. This is the problem. So you see where this gets nowhere, because the two of you can't even agree on what the freaking problem is to begin with. So the first step in problem solving, which doesn't even get to the desired result, because you have to first establish some kind of a bond or some kind of a trust that we are going to just worry about identifying the problem. Let's don't worry about solving it just yet. Let's just see if we can identify it. So that would be the first step. Now, I understand in some cases the two of you are just going to disagree what the problem is, and that's fine as long as you agree that you're going to disagree on what the problem is, but we still have found the problem. It's just now the problem is 1A and 1B. So it's still, in a sense, just one problem. It's just a two-pronged problem. So anyway, this is the deal that I run into is you guys are first going to have to somewhat agree on what the problem is, and then move from there. But if you say the problem is A, and he goes, no, the problem is B, and you try to compromise, negotiate, have a meeting of the minds based on two versions of the problem, most often that's going to be a fail, because he's going to want to resolve problem B while you're trying to resolve problem A, and since the two of you aren't working together, the rest is history. The problem doesn't get solved. Hey guys, this is Mark, and if you're in a neurodiverse marriage, you have probably noticed that you have a hard time resolving conflict, and the problems pile up in the closet, and they've been piling up for how long? Several years, decades. And so the reason that you're having a hard time resolving some of these marital issues are as follows. I have discovered in years of counseling couples that the main reason you don't resolve problems is because you try to fight too many problems at once. How's that been working for you? You haven't even been able to resolve one problem, let alone 3 or 4 at one time. Come on now. So the first order of business here to get you started on resolving conflict is for the two of you to sit down and pick a problem and try to address that one only. Which brings me to my second point. The two of you need to treat these conflict resolution moments as a business meeting. So that's point number 2. You're going to have a business meeting. You're going to treat one another the same way you would a coworker at work. You're going to then come up with one problem that the two of you agree is one of the top 3 problems. That's 3 things now, people. Pay attention. Just create a business meeting. The two of you are going to agree on a problem that lies in the top 3, and you're only going to work on that one problem for now. The other thing that gets in the way is the two of you will tend to want to try to resolve a problem when you're already mad. Dumb idea. That's point number 4. Only have this business meeting where you're addressing one problem that the two of you agreed is in the top 3 of all the problems. You're only going to discuss this when you're calm. Now we have 4 points now. Are you paying attention? The 5th point. We said we're going to conduct this like a business meeting. There's this thing called taking notes. You want to write this stuff down because you won't remember what you said next week. And somebody's going to say, no, I didn't say that, or no, we didn't agree to that, or when did we talk about that part? Write it down so that when one party says, no, I didn't say that, or we didn't talk about that, you go to the notes of the meeting, you look and you go, see, yeah, we did talk about that, we did say this, we said exactly this, and we wrote it down, and you agreed to such and such. Write it down. You need proof, you need accountability, you need something that will help you to remember what the hell you said. Now, I understand this isn't a problem-solving strategy in and of itself, but at least it begins the process. If you can't even begin the process, then you're getting nowhere fast. So let me recap. Pay attention. You're going to make a business meeting. You're going to take notes. The two of you are going to agree on what the main problem, or at least one of the top 3 main problems are. And you're only going to deal with that one. You know, the family is a business in a sense. You're, in many cases, if not most cases, you're raising children. You're trying to keep a household. You're paying bills. You're maintaining property and vehicles. It's a business in the fullest sense of the term, if you think about it. And so when you're trying to resolve marital issues, and the two of you are partners in this business, you have to treat it like a business. And people in the business meeting don't go into the meeting talking about how they feel about things. They don't go in expressing anger, resentment. They don't go in throwing blame. They try to be politically correct. They try to be open to compromise. They try not to offend anybody because they want their points to be well taken and they want their goals to be accepted. And so they present their case very tactfully, as should you. If you will do these things, I can promise you at least the two of you can get to the table and start discussing some things.
I think it's important for us to know why we're here and why you're having problems, so that maybe you could extend a little bit of grace and mercy. I'm not asking you to let him off the hook. Keep him on the hook. Because as I've said many times, having traits of a disorder is no license to go around spraying on people like a skunk. So this is not about getting him off the hook, but this is about understanding that some of his behavior is not purposeful, and this is why it causes so much problems when you try to get him to get it. Because I can't think of a worst possible combination as far as a husband and wife duo than the NT wife and the ASD man with respect to conflict resolution. That is, it makes conflict resolution so terribly hard because she, the NT, is very verbal, can pick up on nonverbal cues. He's not verbal. He doesn't pick up on nonverbal cues. She likes to talk thoroughly through the relationship problems. He tries to avoid talking about relationship problems, raises his anxiety, and then he can't listen or understand or retain or follow through. And you might find that when you have really pushed to get him to get it, he's done some kind of aversion, a meltdown or shutdown. You pick up on emotions and emotional cues very easily. He's alexithymic, and we already know what that means. You will want to come up with a problem-solving method that works for the both of you. He's more inclined to want to be independent and come up with his own solution. When you're under stress, you reach out for support, either through him, maybe other family members or friends. He's the opposite. When he's stressed out, he either gets angry at what he perceives as a source of stress, or he tries to avoid the situation that he thinks is causing the stress. So whereas you reach out and try to connect, he goes inward and tries to disconnect. So you can see why we have such problems in the area of conflict resolution. That's not, again, to say, oh, well, he can't help it. Just, overlook it and deal with it. I'm not saying that at all. But I am saying it would be helpful, and this is a two-way street. He needs to extend some grace and mercy as well. It would be helpful if the two of you, given the fact that you're almost wired 180 degrees opposite, that you could show a little bit of compassion towards one another in those heated moments where there is this disconnect, both emotionally and cognitively, realizing that we're not purposely trying to injure one another. We're just, I speak French, you speak German, and we just got to realize that sometimes these heated arguments and fights are really the result of a different brain wiring, not so much that one person is purposely trying to be hurtful. In case you didn't know, you give off invisible energy, vibes that are tangible, even though you can't see them. If you are in the same room with him and you're so mad at him you could chop his head off, you are giving off some negative vibes, and it will affect him at some level. And he won't even know it, neither will you, what the hell's going on. I can promise you, if you want to test this, when you're at your maddest, try to be near him and see what happens.
Hey, this is Mark Hutton. Would you like to schedule a one-on-one Zoom call? Okay, it's so simple. Just look under any of my videos in the description area. Click on this Calendly link. Now you see my calendar. Pick your month, your day, anytime that's available. Enter your name and email address. Then you'll get a follow-up email with the Zoom link on the day and time that you picked. And voila, we will talk.